Michigan coaches gave me a great opportunity to, solidify my future. So I'm going to give them, you guys, the fans, everything I have, because I didn't have to be in this position. There's a lot of DNs in the country, but they chose me. So, I'm really blessed. And, I feel like it would be a disservice if I didn't give, 110%, every play.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was Michigan 23 commit Enow Etta. A little while ago, talking about his commitment to the Wolverines. Welcome in on this National Signing Day, joined by former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli, who's on the screen. Scar, great to see you. You ready to go?
Ready to roll. A lot of stuff happening, man.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to get to. Nyckoles Harbor, the 5-star wide receiver, outside linebacker, is set to make his decision here at 1 o'clock. We'll see if we can go to that live as he picks Michigan, and everybody is shocked because they have it down to the Ducks and Gamecocks. So we'll see. My prediction is in. I'm laying my hat, throwing it in the ring. I'm putting my reputation on the line. My first ever forecast, Harbor to Michigan. That's forthcoming, so we'll see. That's not what all the experts are saying, but we'll see if that happens or not upcoming here in a moment.
You're an edge player, Danny. You go to Michigan. Hutchinson, numbers 2 player taken, Ajabo, Rashawn Gary. Why are you playing around, kid? You go to Michigan. You play for the champions. You play in the Big Ten. You get a great education. Kids from D.C., I don't know, he wants to go all the way out to Eugene, Oregon. Come play for the best.
Too far. Want to stay in that Eastern time zone. That's for sure. Well, breaking news here at the start, even before we go to Harbor selecting the maize and blue, Tom Brady, congratulations, goes to the Michigan man, number 10 at Michigan, number 12 with the Pats, and with the Bucks. He announces his retirement again. He said this time it's for real. I believe him. Congratulations to Tom Brady.
Yeah, what a great player. What a great Michigan man, representing Michigan for so long, being able to brag that, that was a Michigan guy. And, I look at athletes as what I want to play with them and what I want to coach them. When people ask me about certain guys playing professional sports, and I'd love to play with Brady. He's smart. He's a team guy. I never seen him throw anybody under the bus. I see him take responsibility, and just everything you look for in a quarterback. I mean, he doesn't have the foot speed that I put on my list, but he's so darn accurate, so darn smart, competitive, gets you in the right play, and just got to find a way to win. Definitely a great Michigan guy that has represented us well for 23 years in the NFL.
Yeah, he sure has, and that's what's going on Sports Center right now as they're getting ready to go to Nyckoles Harbor, and they go to one. It's lining up, folks. Just think about it, from one Michigan man to another. Maybe let's just see how long. They've got Harbor there with his Michigan hat under the table, and then there they go. They got Tom Brady right there.
The next closest,
we'll
see. Over 15,000 yards behind him. That's just so crazy, and yet he's so much more than stats, as Diana Rossini.
From one Michigan man to
I saw you live on the air this morning.
Yeah, let's see what he does. Yeah, the kid is. I watch film of him. I wonder what they're recruiting him at. Do they want him to play receiver? I mean, he looked like he could be a great receiver. Maybe I don't know if he's quite a Randy Moss type speed guy, but you definitely could see where he could be just an outstanding edge player. I mean, you see the size and the speed, and he would look real nice lining up on the edge for the Wolverines.
Be good lining up anywhere. We've got a breaking news from a guy whose name has been all over the place with name, image, and likeness. Jaden Rashada thought he was getting $12 million from the Gators, but ESPN says Rashada verbally commits to Arizona State. I don't know if he's getting $12 million from Arizona State or not, but Rashada not going to Miami, not going to Florida. He's going out to Arizona State.
Hey, Denny, I tell you, man, there's a lot of interest in Tom Allen tree guys. The guy at Washington is a Tom Allen guy. This guy worked with Tom Allen. He worked at Washington. There's a lot of people looking at guys that worked for Tom Allen, the Indiana coach. So, that's interesting. And that the kid's going to go out to Arizona State. He's a new coach. So new coach, he's going to want to play his guy early. So it's a good decision for a young quarterback.
Good luck to him. Scar's going to give you his thoughts overall on National Signing Day. He'll also tell you about the best jobs to be had in college football. And he'll look at the Michigan linebacking core. There's a new quarterbacks coach. We'll get the former coach's thoughts on a new quarterback coach at Michigan and Kirk Campbell. We are waiting on the Nyckoles Harbor announcement, and we are going to go to that. They're all about this Rashada commitment right now, and this quarterback that is announcing that he's retiring again. That's what they're leading with. But we're all waiting around for Harbor. And, let's say College Football Live signing day, Nyckoles Harbor next. So they are talking about Harbor. So maybe I'm going to flip things around. Scar, you tell me overall where Michigan, they're ranked number 17. You talk to a lot of people. Michigan expected to get another player added today in a 3-star defensive tackle out of California. But what are your thoughts overall about the class?
It looks like there's some pretty darn good players there, and I played with guys that were 4 or 5-star guys that didn't pan out. I played with some that were really, really good. Played with some 3-star guys that were all Big Ten great players, and it looks like Michigan is they're not milling up out of the block. It looks like we're thinking that we'd rather have Blake Corum come back. We'd rather have Keegan come back. So I think that's maybe where their priority is in terms of really throwing out that NIL money. It might be hurting us with some high school kids. And that it is what I think that's just the Michigan stance now. But I think the players we've got in there are fine, and we can win with them. The blueprint has been working, and let's just give Jim a little more time and see if this thing, if this plan of keeping the proven guys. Get the NIL, get him NIL'd up if he's proven.
Right now, Nyckoles Harbor is
there. He is, Scar.
Is there with his friends, fellow students. I know you got your family there as well, Nyckoles. Nyckoles, a lot has changed since you and I caught up with each other down at the Under Armour Next All-America game in Orlando. You were set to take some visits. You've now done that. Time to make your announcement. What's it going to be, my friend?
With that, I just want to thank everybody. Just want to thank all the coaching staff that, recruited me, just gave me the opportunity, to commit to their school. I just want to thank my family, friends, mom and pops, without them, this all wouldn't be possible. And, I just want to thank the whole Carroll community, just for accepting me and, just letting me be me around it. But, with that being said, for the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of, where y'all want me to go? South Carolina. Go Gamecocks.
Well, there it is, Scar.
What a huge gap for Coach Beamer and South Carolina. The number one.
Beamer's doing he's a charismatic guy. His dad was a legendary coach, and he seems like a good recruiter, good talker, and he probably has an opportunity to play early. I played at South Carolina, played in a game there, went to the game there they get a good following. They get a lot of support. Good luck to you, man. It is what it is. We move on. We'll get the ones we want.
Well, I'll just say this to Nyckoles. What could have been? I feel like, the team that has printed up their championship jerseys and they're ready to hand them out. They got the champagne on ice, and then they lose at the bottom of the 9th, so they got to wheel it all out. They got to send their T-shirts overseas. We are all ready for a Nyckoles Harbor party. and it's not happening here. The first time, I feel like, I've got this egg on my face. I've got to shave my beard and my head now with the guarantee that I made, and I'm 0 for 1. So I'm going to.
I'll tell you something, though. We got McGregor, Harrell, we got Moore, we got guys back. And when you're getting recruited, and I was that guy getting recruited, he can't, Harbaugh and Elston, they can't tell him, look, we see you playing a lot as a freshman, they're possibly starting. That's not going to happen at Michigan. And maybe there's a better opportunity for the kid, or he just sees some weaker returning players, or not many returning players, because, recruits look at that stuff. So the fact that we have great depth coming back at that position could have been a factor as to why we lost them.
Well, I can tell you, I won't be rooting for Nyckoles Harbor. Best of luck to him and everything else at South Carolina. But, I hope he does make the Olympics in track. And, I'll watch the track, and hopefully he's over there in Paris lining up in the 100-meter or something. I could say, hey, I remember when he spurned Michigan and went to South Carolina, and it looks like it's working out for him in track, because I don't think it's going to work out for him in football, but hey, best of luck to him. There you go.
Yeah, real quick memory of signing day, how it's changed. I remember back in my day, 40 years ago, signing, the coaches would come, because you could, on that signing day, if they were really concerned that maybe they wanted to get you signed, you had to sign a document. So the coaches would be waiting at your house at like 7:30 a.m. I remember Fritz Seifert was at my house right at 7:30, and at the kitchen table, mom and dad, we got it signed up right, because they wanted to make sure you got signed, and they had that document. So it's just a little different. Some guys would sign it and fax it in, but anyway, I just remember doing that on my signing day. Now these guys are going on TV and doing things a little different.
How would you have done it on signing day, Scar, at your high school? Would you have grabbed a few hats out there?
I think it's good that, especially what he did, he thanks, you thank all the people that got you there, man. So it's good that all those people that help get you there. I know if I'm a high school coach and my kid is out there talking and he's thanking everybody and he mentions the coaches that helped him, I'm going to appreciate that. So it's obvious the kid was raised good. He mentions all the people that helped him. He understands that it's not just him. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would do, is thank everybody. It helps you.
There you go. All right, let's get into some other things. We'll continue to monitor any big names and signings. We'll tell you about what Michigan's got going on today. Also, what they may have going on tomorrow. Scar, you looked at a former college and professional coach who had a list of best jobs in college football. And it was none other than Urban Meyer who ranked the top 5 overall jobs in college football. Did you agree or disagree? He had, in order, Georgia, Ohio State. He put a tie between Florida and Florida State, LSU, and USC.
The criterion was that, how far are you from talent? That was one of the big things he talked about. Georgia, you take a 300-mile radius around Athens, Georgia, there's a lot of talent. And the fact that Georgia Tech is bad, as long as Georgia Tech is bad, that helps Georgia. Now he has Ohio State there real high. Apparently he believes that you take a 300-mile radius around Columbus, that, there's great talent there. That's what he believes. And then he's got the Florida schools. And there is a ton of talent in Florida. You got 3 big major ones, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. So he that's what he believes. And I understand LSU, there's a ton of talent in Louisiana, and they're the only school there. And then the last one is USC. He figures that, because of tradition, all the talent in Southern California. The thing he doesn't mention, though, Denny, he doesn't mention the fact that, the inferior academics of some of these schools helps them. Okay, he doesn't want to talk about that. If he doesn't have Michigan up there, yeah, we share a state we got to compete with Michigan State, but our academics hurt us more times, I think, than they help us bringing kids in, trying to get kids in, especially with the transfer thing and even undergraduates. So he doesn't want to talk about that as being one of the things that actually helps perhaps Ohio State, Georgia, and some of these schools. But and then again, you know, I firmly believe as long as Michigan State is bad, it helps Michigan. If the more success Michigan State has, it makes it tougher for Michigan to recruit our state. You know, we want to dominate the state of Michigan and get the kids we want. And that's easier if Michigan State is struggling.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say, hey, Urban, you know, it's sports. There's no ties. Maybe when you first started out football at Bowling Green there was, but by the time you were in Florida, you had to make a decision and you had to break the ties. That's so no ties in your top five. And then I would say, well, isn't there tons of talent in South Florida with the U? I mean, where's the U? If you're going to put Florida and Florida State in there, where's the U? They have more talent than anybody down there in South Florida. Where's Texas?
Yeah, those are great points. Yeah, I wonder why he doesn't. I don't know if he figures there's just so much competition. All those schools that are in the state of Texas that they're fighting each other off. I'll tell you one of the if I had to say the toughest job, Power 5, I think Indiana might be the toughest Power 5 job in all of college football, just because of the division they're in. They got to share that state with Notre Dame and in Purdue. You know, they got all these Big Ten schools right there in the state. And there's not a ton of talent in Indiana. Another bad job might be one of the Mississippi schools because they got to play in the SEC West, and they got to share a state. But I get it. There's a ton of talent in Georgia. I totally understand that. And they only got to share with Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech has such high academics. They probably can't recruit a lot of the kids Georgia's recruiting.
Yeah,
Tech.
I think that's a good point. The other one, the obvious omission here is Alabama. Nick Saban might be looking at this list and saying, "Hey, man, this guy, what's he?"
Well, Danny, it's actually a compliment to Saban because, according to Urban Meyer, he didn't think that he's obviously there's talent in Alabama, but maybe not as much as like Georgia, according to Urban Meyer. And then Alabama has to share that state with Auburn. I'm not saying it was just saying our academic standards can only hurt the football program. Yeah, well, that's Steven saying, yeah, listen, there's going to be kids Michigan's recruiting where the kid is like the Hinton brother, the Hinton kid. We got the other one. Those guys really, really value academics. The other one went to Stanford. We got Miles here, but there's some guys that we just can't get them in. We just can't get them in to recruit them. So I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Whereas in Urban somehow neglects to mention that in listing the jobs. Now, the fact that Cincinnati's in the Big 12 now, they might take a kid occasionally from Ohio State. We'll see.
No, I hear you on that. We've been looking at different position groups over the last couple of weeks, and today you wanted to look at linebackers, and however you look at them, you can put the defensive end outside linebackers in a 3-4, but I just put up a depth chart of Mike's, Will's, and the Sam linebacker. You can go through them any way you want, Scar. This is just for people that are watching and not listening to the podcast. So you talking about all the linebackers is going to be fun anyways.
Danny, 9 times out of 10, we're only lining up with 2 linebackers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, we're lining up with Junior and Barrett. You look at the Purdue game, the Ohio State game, we had 2 of them in there, 2 linebackers. So those are our starters, and those are going to be tough to beat out, Junior, and now Barrett's coming back. So and there's going to be, we're going to, like I said, I said it last week, we're going to go from night and day in terms of depth at that position. Last year, those guys were beat up. They didn't, I don't think they rotated. Maybe they didn't feel confident in some of the younger guys to get some more depth. But this year, it's going to be a really, really solid position group. There's going to be a ton of depth. Junior and Barrett will be the starters. But this Hausman kid from Nebraska, he is going to be right there. He's going to be a more physical kid. So against certain teams, he's going to have a little more physicalness than Barrett. Sometimes Barrett hurt us at times against the bigger power physical teams. Barrett's great in coverage, and he does a good job overall in everything he does. But Hausman he's a bigger kid. Rolder will be a year older. Hill Green was a guy that was right in there and then got banged up. So the top 6 guys I have is Junior, Barrett, Rolder, Pollard, and Hill Green. Okay, so those are the top 5 guys I see coming back, which gives us great depth at that position. And Pollard and Rolder are the freshmen, but they're no longer going to be freshmen. They played a lot as freshmen. So hopefully those first 3 games of the year, those guys will get a ton of work. And, I have Stewart on that list too. I'm not quite sure. I think they're going to play him on the edge though.
Okay.
But anyway, I like the position group way more than I did last year because we've got 5 guys that can play. They're all physically able, ready, can play good Big Ten football, and we've got depth. We can withstand an injury or 2 to be real solid still at that position group.
And you're talking about Josiah Stewart, who is a transfer from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I think they're going to play him on the edge. I mean, he's a kid that he could possibly play some inside, but I think they're going to play him on the edge. But that is again a solid group that we'll be real. If I'm coaching that group, I'm feeling real comfortable rotating all 5 of those guys. I would, to keep people healthy, keep people fresh, keep people engaged, keep competition, and to continue to develop depth.
Yeah, and one thing, this is a National Signing Day in Michigan. There's a lot of people that expected that with Michigan having a top 10 class last year, that they were going to see maybe even a top 5 class with the success that they're having on the field, and that hasn't happened. I think a lot of that has to do with the top kids and name, image, and likeness. The other thing, though, that we were talking about last year, it would have been a sky is falling type of feeling for a lot of people because the name, image, and likeness and the uncertainty there, and also the transfer portal. But the portal process for Michigan, whatever they're doing, obviously they're stepping it up, and they seem like they're able to go in there, and they have definitely with we've just talked about Josiah Stewart and Ernest Hausman. I mean, and then the center, Drake Nugent, other offensive linemen. I mean, they've went in through the transfer portal, and they look like they've struck gold.
Yeah, I could see that the Stanford kid coming from Stanford probably doesn't lose any credits, but it was a pleasant surprise to get a kid like this, a guy from Coastal Carolina, and then a guy who played 1 year at Nebraska, that were able to be in the mix to compete against the Michigan States. For a kid like that he's not going to lose credits to come to Michigan. So maybe I don't. And again, we don't know, Danny, but I'm thinking maybe they're getting a little bit of help. When I say they, our athletic coaches are getting a little bit of help with maybe a little bit of softening of some of the demand standards to bring in undergraduate transfers. I just, when I saw, when you see undergraduates coming in and our ability to bring them in, that's a good sign that we can compete with those to get those kids.
Yeah, if it was up to me, I would say for sports, if you want to transfer in, we're gonna take some of those credits that otherwise you might not take if you were transferring in as a regular student. You're not a regular student. You're special in that, you bring this great ability to play, in this case, football. So that would be my stance. I think a lot of others as well. And if you want to compete and fill that stadium up, those are some of the things that you have to do.
Yeah, but you got to still, you have to, when you take the job, like you take a Stanford job, a Notre Dame job, a Michigan job, you got to deal with academic standards. It's different than Ohio State. So it is what it is. You take that job, you know what you're getting. You take the Vanderbilt job, you take the Northwestern job, it's something you just got to deal with, and you got to try to use it to your advantage when you're recruiting a high academic kid, and just and move on if you can't get the kid in.
Right. There you go. All right. That's a look at the linebackers each week. We'll look at one of those position groups. And
Danny, I know you don't have this on your list, but because, but I have a pick. I got a pick. One of the best bets I ever had, Danny, was Super Bowl when Coach Harbaugh was coaching. They had a over-under on the amount of carries, the number of carries Kaepernick would have. Ooh. And I think he averaged like 5 carries a game throughout the season. And that's what the over-under was. It was like 5 or 5.5, something like that. But anyway, I bet big that he's going to have more carries. Danny, there is no tomorrow. So here's my pick, and it's not out yet. I looked at his average. Jalen Hurts averages like 8.5, 9 carries a game. If it's 8.5, 9, you take the over, and you thank Scar after the game. If it's 8, 9.5, somewhere in there, carries, that's the bet. That's the pick. That's free to all our listeners.
I like that in a normal situation, and your advice about doing it because there's no tomorrow, that makes a lot of sense. The only thing that might not make sense there is that he's been dealing with that shoulder injury and he has not been running as much, but maybe like you say, because it's a Super Bowl, he'll go back and he's got an extra week again on top of what he's had and he's been dealing with it, that he will be close to 100%. That's the only, I will, I'll jump.
I hear you, but they still ran him last week with a couple, with being banged up a little bit, some predetermined runs. So
one drive. Yeah. He seemed like he was sliding down, and then it was like one drive. He was like, I'm going to be the Jalen Hurts from the regular season, and he was off and running. I think that was the one that ended up scoring the touchdown, and that was good for me as I had the anytime touchdown for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. So that paid off.
Danny, I just want to throw another thought out here that I'm really surprised that we haven't had any of our, we had Biff Poggi. That's it. I'm surprised nobody has gone and scooped up a guy like Klingsdale or Jay Harbaugh to run the defense or Hilo to be a coordinator somewhere. I guess maybe just because we're paying guys so well at Michigan, they don't want to leave. But I'm a little shocked with it, with the success we've had defensively, that nobody has come in and said, if I got a job, I see a lot of these coaches getting jobs, new jobs. If I got a job, I'm calling Klingsdale to run my defense. If he's not, if Minter's, if he's got anyway, I'm a little shocked at it. Or I get a guy like Hilo to be a coordinator. I just want to throw that out there.
I would bet that if Jesse Minter comes back and puts up a defense, there's a lot of the conversation, and I was right there at the front of the line with everybody else saying, Michigan's defense is not going to be as good as it was the year before. You just can't lose the kind of talent in Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo and Dax Hill and expect them to have the same kind of defense. The defense was better last year, and they played a lot of different guys. And if they come back and do it again, then Jesse Minter is going to be in big time demand. 1 year, people, they definitely are taking a look. You do it in 2 years, that's a trend, and people will be coming after Jesse Minter for sure. So
we played great defense all year except the last game of the year. And again, the people in the Big Ten are going to look at that game, Danny. That's what coaches do. If you're having trouble moving the ball against a certain team, you're okay. Who is having success? And you're going to say, can I do some of those things? But our coaches are going to, they're going to dissect that TCU game too. Hey, another thought, Danny. I saw they did a nice story on Brandon Graham from here in Detroit, Michigan guy playing with the Eagles. And I know guys in coaching that, that say a lot of great things, how he's helped out Detroit area kids. And my brother's kid was on a 7-on-7 team on the East Coast, and Brandon was there, and he took care of those kids, bought them all dinner, didn't have to, didn't ask for any publicity on it, but and I've met him once or twice too, and he's just a real deal guy, man. Just a great Michigan guy, and we got a couple guys playing for the Chiefs too. Michael Dana's having a great career so far there, and then we got the Henning there, and who's the other
Clark,
and then Big Frank, Brady. That was Brady Hoke's. Loved Frank Clark, but those guys are representing. So got some good Michigan guys playing in the big game.
Yeah, I'll echo what you had to say about Brandon Graham. I've never met him myself. I've watched a few interviews, listened to a few interviews, and Brandon Graham comes off as very genuine and somebody who has not forgot about where he is come from. And if you could have 11 Brandon Grahams out there on your football team, you'd be doing great. I mean, that guy from everything, man, family man, right across the board, and then an awesome player on the field too. He's the kind of representative that you want. Good luck to.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that could have played too. He could have played like 7, 8 different positions. Probably not in the secondary, but he's not the tallest guy. He's not a real tall guy. He's just a great athletic, tough guy. And Denny, I'm throwing some stuff. I know I didn't prepare you for this. How about Tryrone Wheatley getting the Wayne State job? I'm happy to see that. I've said this before. I like guys that, you're an assistant coach here, there, wherever, and maybe you're a little frustrated. You haven't had a chance to be a head coach, and you complain about it, you whine about it. Well, Tryrone Wheatley took a job here at Wayne State, only paying $207,000 a year to prove himself as a coach. So I respect guys that instead of whining and complaining that you're not getting a big job somewhere, you say, okay, let me go take a job that's been struggling, and let's try to build it and turn it around and show people that I can lead. I mean, that's what Harbaugh did when he took the San Diego job. That was a Division III, Division nothing school that was losing, and he turned it around quickly, and people noticed. So I'm hoping, I'm cheering for Michigan man Tryrone Wheatley down here at Wayne State.
Yeah, Tryrone Wheatley was a great player at Michigan. He stayed all 4 years when he could have left and been a top 5 pick. He was a top 10 pick anyways. He played for a long time in the NFL. I don't think Tryrone Wheatley had to work a day after he was done playing football. He could have just sat around, kicked his feet up, and just watched the interest roll in and just play golf. But I interviewed him when he was, I don't know what, one of the historically black colleges. He was a head coach for a couple years down there, and I interviewed him. Tryrone Wheatley loves football, and he loves coaching, and he loves, working with kids. So you listen to him talk for a while and you're like, yeah, this guy's just what it's all about too. So I'm a big fan. I was a big fan of Tryrone Wheatley when he wore the number 6 at Michigan. I've continued to be a fan of Wheatley the whole time as well. So those are easy. Scar, you may say you're bringing your fastball and throw me some curves. Those are right. You're teeing them up for me, man. Talking about Brandon Graham and Tryrone Wheatley, keep those coming, throwing them right down the middle to me.
I'll tell you something that bugged me. I used to be a big Tony Romo fan. Tony Romo, you can tell he played quarterback. You listen to a game Tony Romo does, Denny, all he wants to do is talk about the quarterback. Ain't nobody else playing. And if the quarterback does something great, he's going to stroke him up and down. If he does something bad, he just changes the subject. And he talks about something else. But I just wanted to I just think an analyst needs to be, you need to watch the whole game and all the players out there. And I know a lot of people love him, but just kind of bugged me. I don't know. What's your take on that? I think an analyst needs to be, you need to find these other guys doing some things too.
Well, when it comes down to analysts, it's about who's going to be the most entertaining. And, your regular football fan, a lot of times it's like, it's about drawing in the wives and the girlfriends and the fringe players. And people love the old Tony Romo would get on there and say, hey, Jim, they're going to throw the ball over to the left here. And sure enough, they're throwing the ball over to the left, which is what, you could put 95% of the quarterbacks in there. And, they know where the ball's going to and making the predictions, but it stuck and it worked for them. It was just stick and it worked well. I do think there's a lot of people that are getting a little tired of Tony Romo. For me, I tune in to watch the game. And when everybody off the bat was like, oh, Tony Romo's so great, he's telling you what's going to happen in there. I'm like, I'm like watching him. He's like, I don't know what's going on, Jim. What's that? I was thinking I've had enough of this even in the first season. So he annoys me a little bit. I don't think he's the greatest of all time in there. I don't think he, I don't think he deserves 17,000, let alone 17 million. Greg Olsen, who did the other game, Greg Olsen's doing a great job.
He sees the whole game. He sees offensive, defensive line play. He understands. I like listening to guys that understand. There's 22 guys out there playing. I just wanted to mention that, and you jumped in. I'll tell you something now, Danny. We got this guy hired, this analyst.
Yeah, before you do that, Scar, let me give everybody some breaking news. And for that, if you want to know what's going on right now with Michigan recruiting in 24 and everything else, go to michigan.rivals.com, sign up for the Maize and Blue Review. We've talked about this guy who came in 2 weeks ago. He was a Stanford commit, Cameron Brandt, a 23 defensive tackle, and it is official now. Michigan has landed him, so they get another player from Flip Cameron Brandt from here on National Signing Day.
Where is he from, Danny? What state?
He is from Chatsworth, California, Sierra Canyon.
Oh, that's great. To go into California, the kid cares about academics. And Harbaugh still has a name out there from, parents. The kid was too young when he was coaching the 49ers in Stanford, but that's a great get right there, man. Good.
Yep, they got him on National Signing Day. That's what they wanted, and they got him. All right, Scar, it happened since last week. That is Michigan and Jim Harbaugh making it official with Kirk Campbell, who was an analyst, and now he gets the job at quarterbacks coach, and that's what Matt Weiss had last year as well as co-offensive coordinator the year before. Weiss, I say just the quarterbacks coach, and we know what kind of success Michigan had on the field. So Matt Weiss had a lot of success as a quarterbacks coach and then co-offensive coordinator, and Campbell comes into a great situation with J.J. McCarthy and being the quarterback coach for a two-time Big Ten champ. So a nice spot for Coach Campbell.
Yeah. Last week we talked about T. Martin. We talked about Brian Greasy. We talked about Tavita from Stanford, and Jim Harbaugh says, you know what? I got a guy right here. So there's some things going on here. So as a college coach, you're looking for these analysts. Now, if you want to get a good analyst and you have a reputation as possibly hiring some of these guys, that can help you attract good analysts. So that's one thing, upside for Coach Harbaugh with this strategy. The second thing is when you bring him in as an analyst, you get to watch him work. You get to see how he communicates, even though he's not, on the field coaching like a position coach, and has the ability to go and recruit in living rooms and all that, but he could still do enough where you can get a good, real feel for what kind of guy he is. Do I want this guy around our kids? Do I want him in our program? So he's got a little history. He coached at Penn State, who runs a lot of our stuff. He probably he understands the RPO game. He was a coordinator before at Old Dominion, which is good football. So I think it's a good move by Jim. And this move will help him in the future attract good analysts. When I, same kind of thing I was doing when I was coaching at the high school level, I had guys that were, I had all my paid guys, but I had a couple extra bucks that I could spend on coaches. And I would have these guys that came in. I used to give them a couple bucks here, whatever. And then when there was an opening, I had a guy who already understood our system, and now I could plug him right into a JV job or an assistant varsity job, whatever. But it's the same kind of thing. It's kind of like a bullpen or a farm system. To have a guy ready to go because he's right there. He's been working with you. He knows the system. You don't have to train him and teach him nothing. You're off and running right away. Bam, here we go.
Yeah, and you should be able to determine everybody, well, what kind of recruiter is he going to be because he hasn't done that, or, he was at Old Dominion, so you don't really know about his connections. But it's just like any position. If you get in there and the guy's personable and he's a hard worker, then, you are selling Michigan, which is a big help. So if you can get on the phone and connect with people, you should be able to be a good recruiter. It's not I know there's some people that are more dynamic and charismatic just automatically, and and that could make a big difference for sure. But
let me tell you this though, and we've all of us have had different types of sales pitches when we buy a car, we buy furniture, whatever. Some people like the talkative, loud guy, and some people don't. Like I'm not going to mention this one coach that was at Michigan, but there was one guy that was a really good talker, and he was annoying to me. But other guys loved him, so it all depends on the kid. Everybody's approach to recruiting doesn't work with every kid. The old line I heard is bait the fish. How's it go? Bait the hook to suit the fish. Bait the hook to suit the fish. So anyway, everybody doesn't love the Jim Scarcelli approach to recruiting. They might like your approach better, and some guys might like my approach better than yours. So there isn't always a one size fits all in terms of this guy is going to recruit better than that guy. And what helps more than anything is that you got that M on your shirt when you come into the high school, and it's not the the P for Purdue or the I for Indiana. When you got the big block M in there, that matters a hell of a lot more than the guy who's shaking your hand in many cases.
I always liked Jared Irons, who told me what it took to send him to Michigan. He said that Cam Cameron came into his living room down in the Woodlands in Texas, and he folded up a piece of paper and he said, I want you to take a look at that when I leave. And the next time he talked with him, he said, did you look at that piece of paper? And Jared said, yeah. And he said, what do you think? He's like, I'm going to Michigan. And then Jared said, there was just a number that was on the piece of paper. And Cam said, that's what students that get a 4-year degree from Michigan can expect in their first year in the job field or something like that. And Jared, that sold him, whatever the 4-year degree. So that was Cam Cameron's pitch, the old card on the table or whatever else. Yeah. And it worked for somebody like Jared Irons. So that was
you got to know what you can sell, what your university offers, and the great ones know which buttons to push with which kid.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they're talking about name, image, and likeness, and Michigan not being able to get the 5 stars and not being able to get these top 100 players, and thinking that this is going to affect Michigan. But you say in the long run, not this upcoming year, but thinking about in 24, and I think that's a legitimate concern, even if they are going to the transfer portal. But maybe these new rules, maybe Michigan getting involved, maybe how they look at it, the new president, they think about it, they talk about it, so, I expect them, just like they did with the transfer portal, that they're continuing to look at it and think about it and how to go after it. So, they said that they were going to reward the players that came in and stayed and were participants out on the field. And that was true. Getting in years past, Michigan wouldn't have had any Trevor Keegan or Zach Zinter, or certainly no Blake Corum. I mean, these guys would have been gone for sure. And yet, these players coming back, and then it would have lost a couple other ones that you might not even have thought about that, would have jumped. But so they were able to retain a lot of the players. So NIL worked for Michigan next year. Is it going to work in the future? And we know they're working at it. I mean, it's the one last.
Denny, we don't know the future and what is the best approach. But Texas A&M had that great class last year. I think half those guys left. How'd you like to pay all that upfront money, like Texas A&M did last year, to find out these guys can't play, or you're not ready to play when you're a freshman and really producing, in football. It's just the way it is. Very few guys are really able to contribute. It takes a couple of years in the weight room to really contribute, especially the offensive, defensive line. But that was their philosophy. Let's get these guys nilled up as freshmen, and then, again, half those guys left. Michigan's approach is different. We don't know which approach is going to be in the end is going to be the best one, but there's some good things about what we're seeing from Michigan, though. To get Corum back, like you said, because there's no way he's coming back if NIL isn't in place. No way. He's gone.
Yeah, Miami threw a lot of cash around as well, and they had a terrible season. Maybe there's a balance there where you're picking a player or two that you're getting out after there and selling your NIL where, and, maybe it is the quarterback position. Let's see. I think I don't think it's as it looks. I know that, people would say, well, what's Michigan's approach? Michigan's approach is, no, we're not doing anything against the rules here. We don't care what everybody else is doing. They're thinking about how they can go about it. I think that's pretty good.
Denny, I don't know if it's the rules. I just, if you had, like, let's just say you had $30 million to deal with. What did third base say he had over there that he needed?
12 or 15.
Okay, let's just say we got 20 million. Let's say Coach Harbaugh has, between a bunch of collectives, he's got 20 million to disperse to maintain his team. And do you want to, would you rather have Corum back or some 5-star defensive end that isn't going to help you for 3 years? Because he's going to get, we don't even know if he can play. I played with a bunch of guys that were 5-star guys that they were gone after 1 year. You just don't know if how tough they are, how smart they are. Can they handle college football is a whole nother deal. So again, what would you do if you had that 20 million to disperse amongst 100 and some players? And everybody has a different strategy. But the one that works is the one. If you're winning championships, that's the one that's working. So.
Yeah, well, if the NIL started 4 or 5 years ago, would Michigan been able to get Donovan Edwards? Would they have been able to get J.J. McCarthy? I mean, those are the kind of questions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ask yourself as well. So, they have to strike a balance in there somewhere, you would think.
Jenny, did you talk about Josh in Miami? Did you bring that up at all?
I'm sorry, you broke up just a little bit there. Josh Gattis.
Did you bring up at all Josh Gattis getting fired?
No, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on it.
I just, I'm going to just, keep it real with our listeners. I had heard that, he was one of the guys that snitched on Michigan with the hamburger, the taco, whatever it was. And I'm just wondering if you're if you got a guy working with you and you brought him in, and then now you hear that he did something to his previous employer like that, are you going to want him working with you to think that he might do the same things to you? I'm just throwing it out there. It's something I had heard that he was behind these issues we're having with the NCAA. So I wouldn't bring it up if I hadn't heard it from some pretty good sources that Josh Gattis was the guy that did that to us. And I just wonder if that has something to do with why that coach Cristobal got rid of him. Just throwing it out there, maybe,
Yeah, well, there's certain ways that you leave a job, even if you're frustrated. Like, certainly he was frustrated, and when Harbaugh looked like he was leaving for that 12 or 24 hours last year, actually a year ago today, when it looked like he was leaving to go to the Vikings, and then in the football office, the succession plan, quickly came up on who was going to be the next head coach, and Gattis being one of the coordinators, he thought, hey, this is going to be my chance. But they looked at his situation and what happened at Michigan, and people pretty much know what happened off the field or outside of the office, and they just said, that's not, you're not the head coaching material, at least here at the outset. That really hurt him. So he took off mad, but especially there's probably any business. I don't know if it's good in any business, to tell everybody, walk out the door, even though if you want to, and say, you'll remember this, but he did do that. That's a lesson that, you don't want to.
Danny, here's something else that's, I know it's not on your list, but last year I told you Illinois was going to be the most improved team in the Big Ten. And I believe I was right. I'm going to tell you a team that's going to be, they're not in the Big Ten, that's going to be on the map real soon, because I think this guy is a great coach, is Kevin Wilson, who's now at Tulsa. And I've looked at the staff he's brought in and some of the coaches he's brought in. Tulsa is going to be a team that you're going to be hearing about and dealing with. They're going to be an up and coming team, Tulsa, with Kevin Wilson. He's got Greg Fry, the former Michigan offensive line coach, out there. and he's got some. That's a team out there. You heard it from Scar. So in 2 years, 3 years, when they're good, you remember. You heard it here first.
Tulsa. What did you make? What did you think when you finally saw the news that the Broncos got their man in Sean Payton? Scar, was that something that you felt good about with Jim Harbaugh? Because as recently as 2 weeks ago, the Denver owner, despite what Harbaugh was saying or that they were tweeting or anything else, he had a face-to-face, according to reports, in Ann Arbor with Harbaugh. And was, dangling whatever it was, 15, 16, 20, 25. I don't know how much he was dangling.
You know what I would say about that owner? He's smart. He's smart. He's talked. His final list came down to 2 proven guys. I know what I'm getting if I get Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton. I got 2 guys that one guy won a Super Bowl. Other guy's been 4-0 at where he's built programs. He's won everywhere he's went in Coach Harbaugh too. So I think you got 2 proven winners there. Understand the football at the highest level. So, hey, look, as far as him being in there talking to Jim, I'm not sure of the timing of that. Was it, what day it was in terms of when he committed back to Michigan? But we've covered that. Hopefully there's a handshake and there's trust. And the athletic the director and the president and the coach, just give the coach what he needs and get the heck out of the way. I'm just telling you how I looked at it, Denny, when I was coaching. I didn't always love every athletic director. I got along pretty good with most of them. I had different ones. But I got to the point where, look, man, just make sure the bus is there, get my equipment, get my field line, get me what I need, and then get the heck out of my way. Let me coach. And I guarantee you, Jim is looking at it the same way. Get all the things we need so we can compete, and then get the hell out of my way. Because I got my coaching staff, I got my players. Provide me as a coach so I can compete with the Buckeyes, and then get out of my way.
Oh, that sounds fine. I would just say, hey, Jim, talk to somebody on the phone. You ain't gonna be doing any Zooms, and you didn't need to be going through all that. But, hey, he's high maintenance, and the bottom line is that he's back with Michigan, which is good. But, he didn't need I guess, the January's with Harbaugh. Everything else is pretty good. All the other months I like. I just don't like it in January. So, I was a really big fan of Harbaugh in all the other months. 11 out of 12. I just didn't like it.
Well, Denny, again, I don't want to keep maybe if you're loyal to the guy and you give him what you say you're going to give him, maybe you're not going to have any kind of high maintenance issues. So that we don't know the whole story. We don't know the whole story. Who stabbed who? We do know he took a pay cut. So let's just quit beating it up. We don't know. Let's see. We're up and running. We're unified. We got our coach. We got great assistants coming back. We got great players coming back. Athletic director, give the guy what he needs and get out of his way.
I'll give you the last word on that. All right. Okay, Scar, that's going to do it. Michigan lands the player that we were wondering about, and Cameron Brandt. So you got that, and now we're off. And next thing you know, you get this is the winter phase until you get into the spring phase, which comes pretty quick, like around April the 1st or whatever. So.
Yeah, this is where you're really starting to build your team, man. You're in that weight room, and you've got the transfers came in, and they're getting acclimated, and this is Ben Herbert time, man. This is real Ben Herbert time. So he's taking the lead now. Coaches are out recruiting, and and you're seeing guys step up, because I remember that transition, even the weight, the running and the lifting. When you're a young guy, you're just kind of following along, but now when you become the senior, you become the older guy. Who talks to the team? Who's the guy motivating in the weight room? And now you start to see that transition between a kid like McGregor. It's like, hey, there's guys, Michael Morris is gone, and now who's taking those roles in the weight room? There's guys that are gone. So people are going to start to step up in the weight room is where you start to see it incrementally work towards spring football.
Love it. Scar, you did a great job today. As always, can't wait to talk with you next week.
Yeah, hey, again, you got that easy. If it's 9 carries or less, easy money. And then just thank me for free. Go Blue.
We'll check on some of those props next week. I don't play the game for